Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I am your host, Seawall, as I check in each and every single week to give you the latest and greatest in the hot topics and tips on the Washington Commanders. If you're joining this conversation live, thank you so much, and apologies for the delay. I think the whole virtual setup here was having a moment, much like the Washington Commanders did against the New York Giants in MetLife Stadium yesterday. If you're just checking in, hit that love button, hit that like button if you're on Facebook, and if you're joining us on YouTube, drop a fire emoji so that I know that you are in the building. We absolutely have to go through our housekeeping items. This is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here will more than likely end up on your television screens each and every single day, 1:30 to 2:30 on Verizon Channel 11 and Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. This is Monday through Friday and on the weekends during the noon hour. Again, this is your Washington Commanders update from the Coaching from the Couch series. And I am your host, C. Wall. Checking in, you all. Make sure you say hello to Mama Waller. Make sure you say hello to Pops Waller, because we're getting ready to get on into the conversation. Make sure you share this link with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends, anybody who may want to chime in, and anyone who feels like they need to just talk and have a conversation after the Commanders lost to the New York Giants. I see huge Commanders fans. Kimberly and Cameron have checked in. You all make sure you say hello so that we can go ahead on and get into this conversation. Whoo! And we're gonna take our time. We're gonna take our time. Just because the virtual environment didn't want to cooperate, that does not mean we will not continue on with the conversation, because we have a show to do. So you have to go ahead and get through the conversation. And while we're doing that, you all already know the drill. Regardless of how the game turns out, we have to always do this one, and that is, what's your one word? And what is your one word? As soon as the game was over, what was the one word that you used to describe how you felt once it was all said and done? And Kimberly, I see that you have a few words written down here, but maybe you said them in sentences. So it was like three different sentences. So it was like relax, relate, and then release. That was how you felt at the end of the Commanders' loss to the New York Giants. And Mama Wallace says she was sad, or it was sad. It was just sad. That's Mama Wallace's one word. Cameron Mingo has deflated as his one word. You all continue to drop those one words into the chat as we have this conversation. I see Lamar Bland jumped in and he said, see, Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen had a lot. He had a few words, four letters in nature. So, you know, there is that. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's how I'm thinking we're going to do this. We're going to jump right on into the press conferences, the after game press conferences. Here's why. I want you all, now that you've had 24 hours and some change, right, to think through what happened, what everybody watched. It was a rough watch for all parties involved. I want to get your thoughts. We're going to go through the whole entire press conference, after game press conference. Up first is going to be Ron Rivera's. So listen intently, very with your good ears, to everything that Ron Rivera had to say. Then we're going to discuss what he said, and then in preparation for next week. And then I definitely want to take a moment to then check out Sam Howell's press conference as well. So I know the open wound still stings. It might still feel like we're throwing a little bit of salt in it, but I think it's important for us to have these discussions to really get into the after game pressers. So drop in the chat what you're thinking in response to what's being said in the after game presser. This is about 5 minutes. Up first is Ron Rivera's after game press conference.
Slow to adjust. What do you think?
Well, they threw a lot of different things at us. And again, we got to be able to pick them up and, slow it down. I mean, that's the truth about it. The first half, whatever they did, they were having a little more success than we needed them to have. We got to be able to be better at early on and make those adjustments a little bit quicker. We came out at halftime, and I thought these adjustments that were made were what we needed to have.
Obviously, in this league, anybody can beat anybody, but 2 of the last 3 weeks, lost to the Bears, lose this game. Do you feel like it's slipping away after games like this at all?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what's the next game. And to me, it's really about how you bounce back more than it is anything else. With 10 games left to go, you never know what's going to happen. But you got to take them one at a time. You got to stay focused on it. We'll correct these things. There's a lot of things that we can correct. A lot of things we're going to get better at, and we'll continue to get, work at it, and we'll see what happens.
What was the game plan to handle pressure, and why was it ineffective?
It's the same game plan that we used in the second half that was effective. Unfortunately, we didn't get it done early on. We put ourselves in a tough spot.
Why not?
Because we didn't handle it.
Third down conversions were a problem last week and continued today. What did you kind of see on that play?
In the first half, we struggled getting the conversions. In the second half, we were able to get them done. We did things better in the second half than we did in the first half.
Whether it's the sacks or the third down, what do you think changed? Was it something you guys talked about specifically at halftime, or what changed?
Some of the corrections that were made, some of the things that we did better. And I thought some of the execution things in the second half were exactly what we needed. We did a lot of good things. Unfortunately, we didn't capitalize. We get the ball down in the red zone and we get a kick block. We get down in the red zone. Unfortunately, we didn't score at the end. But that's football. That's part of the game. We'll continue to work at it. We'll continue to look at the things we're doing. We'll evaluate what we're doing, and we'll get those things corrected.
What was the explanation for that final seconds there when there was the injury and you guys weren't able to get the ball back? Duran was injured.
And we were out of timeouts. So when you're out of timeouts, automatically what happens is there's a 10-second write-off.
And then before halftime, you had the opportunity to call a timeout and potentially get the ball back and opted not to.
At that point, it was enough was enough. We were going to go in. We were going to talk about the things that we needed to get done. The drive beforehand was not a very good situation, and I just felt it would be better for us to get in, talk about those things. We were going to get the ball to begin with in the second half.
The Giants hadn't scored a first-half offensive touchdown this season. How surprised were you by their offensive success early?
Well, I was disappointed in it. We had a couple opportunities to make some stops, and we missed those opportunities.
Do you think it was their result of just running different stuff? Was it anything you weren't expecting?
Well, I think they did exactly a lot of the things that we thought they would do. Unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on the chance to get out on third down. We didn't capitalize on the opportunity to make plays when we had them. We could have probably put them in a better situation a couple times too. So again, these are all things that we'll have to go and evaluate.
Ron, I know the film. You probably have to look at the film, but on some of those sacks in the first half, how much of that is sliding on protection one way to take away some things, and how much of it is physical mistakes execution-wise?
Well, I mean, again, David, the fair thing is to take a look at the tape more than it is anything else. You got to take a look at those things. You got to really get a chance to dive into them and see what happened early on. In the second half, I thought we handled those situations a little bit better.
Was the tackle eligible always part of what you were looking at as potential things?
It was something that we considered doing, and it was something that Eric used in the second half to kind of help shore some things up.
Take 3 more.
I know you said the O-line had started to make some progress. Did you feel in any way this game was sort of a setback, or what did you want to see from that group that maybe you didn't in the first half?
No, what I wanted to see us was play better, be more efficient, be more consistent as a team, more so than anything else. I mean, there's a lot of little details that were missed, and these things have to be looked at and corrected.
What was your general message to the team afterward?
It was pretty much a follow-up of what I had said at halftime, about going out and doing our jobs, more so than anything else. Pay attention to the details, the little things. Those are things that are going to help you have success. I thought they came out in the second half and gave themselves a chance to win. But, you can't go down 14-0 and expect to pull things out all the time.
Ron, on the blocked field goal, was that more them, or did you identify something you guys didn't do well enough?
Well, we'll have to take a look at it. I mean, he went up, big man, and put a paw on it and knocked it down. We got to take a look and see, what the trajectory of the kick was, how much of a push he got up front, if he got any push at all.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right.
If you are just tuning in, you are watching from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update, and I'm your host, Seawall from Bowie Television. We were in the building, as we always are, covering the game on site. And make sure you're hitting that love button, like button, sharing this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends, because we do talk about the conversation live before it hits the television screens each and every single day from 1:30 to 2:30 and on the weekends during the noon hour. I already saw that Lamar Bland said it. Ron didn't want to talk. No, he did not. And this is why. Of course he didn't, right? And of course he didn't. Let me say, no, he didn't want to talk. End of sentence. And of course he did not want to talk, right? But he has to. This is why I always say, if you've been watching this show for a while, hello and welcome. And if you're new, hello and welcome. I always want to dive into the after game press conference. And I'm going to tell you why, because that's how you really feel. That's where you really are with things. That's really your aura and your ambiance. And that's what I want to talk about, and that's what I want to see. Here was my one word. My one word for after this game was regression. You all have heard me say, and I have my pen in my hand because I have my notes. So I'm in like teacher mode a little bit. But I always want to see progress. Things that we saw in the summer at camp, I don't necessarily want to see it in September. If I see it, it's kind of like, okay. But mid-October, we got an issue. You've also heard me say weeks 5 through 7. That's when you start to really understand what you got going on. Because whatever, hey, sometimes the game just doesn't fall your way. However, as a team, what you have in your units, weeks 5 through 7, that's when you're like, okay, what's going on here? What's happening here with my team? You should know. I'm talking about as a coach. If I'm a coach, you know who you have, what you have. You understand what's working, what hasn't been working. You understand a lot of the mannerisms, the where they're getting, what they're good at, what their strengths are, areas of growth, areas of improvement. You start to know all of those things, especially from game day, weeks 5 to 7. In week 5 was the Chicago Bears game. Then you got week 6, which didn't look all that good, but they ended up coming up with the W. And then you got week 7 against the Giants. My one word, going back to that, regression. We've seen the Commanders in recent weeks do things not well that they were doing well previously. And I say to myself, what is going on? What is happening? We'll get to Sam Howell in a minute because we want to go through his press conference as well. We'll get to the office in a minute. I'm just talking about the team. We understand, we already knew going in this offense, you got a new offensive coordinator. I might as well say a new rookie to starting quarterback. Right, you got a new offensive line, most of it, for the most part, new together. Your defense, pretty much the same. You got some new guys, ball hawks that you've just drafted. But everybody else, your veterans, your leadership team on that side, it's the same. It's your core. I said, they almost are acting like they haven't played together. What could be happening? What then is the elephant in the room and what is transpiring, that this team is looking like they're trying to figure each other out for the first few times. You all have heard me say this, and I'm going to continue to say it until I see it differently. And that is, I'm seeing the team do things on game day that they don't do in practice. And granted, we understand that practice is not as fast as game day. Understood. But I'm seeing just the overall execution. And we're going to get to coaching, because you always know that's where I'm going to start. It's a leadership thing. It's always going to be a leadership thing with me. And then you got some players that just not executing as well. But I'm going to get to execution first, because that's on the player side where I'm seeing catches get dropped that normally get made in practice. It's something, and I don't know if it's a bracing for a hit, not really anticipating the pace of the real game. I'm not sure what it is, but those passes get caught in practice, and on game day they don't. And it's like, okay, are we? And now I'm gonna switch to coaching for a moment. On the offensive side, are we just doing the play as that's the play call? Or if the play call isn't working, are we now in freestyle mode, impromptu mode, where we got to just make something happen? And in that time to make something happen, now you get sacked. I'm saying all of this to say that now I'm looking at the team very sideways, because see, when it was a time that what I was seeing in practice was what I saw on game day, then I wasn't dealing with anything. I'm like, okay, so be it. That's what I saw in practice. I see that in practice. But now there are things that we don't see in practice. Now, here's one thing that is coming back to bite them on offense that we would see in practice. And that would be, okay, on game day, when the defense is doing their thing, it's like, all right, on game day, that's a sack. On this day, that's a sack, right? But still not that many in practice. So you would think that as time has gone on, no, the media doesn't get to stay out there the entire practice, but as time goes on, I mean, we never saw a practice where there was 5 and 6 sacks in a practice. They're not actually doing the actual progression of an actual sack, but oh, that would have been a sack. When you see it a couple times, though, I'm gonna tell you all the truth. We would definitely see it a couple of times, but not 5 or 6 and a half, or even through a whole entire game time. So now it becomes in week 7. If things are not resonating, and we're going to get to Jack in a moment. If things are not resonating, Jack Del Rio, that is, what then? How can things be communicated in a way that it starts to resonate with your receiver? Now, here in coaching and leadership, sometimes it's the messenger, sometimes it's the message, sometimes it's just how you are displaying and presenting the message. Something isn't getting clear. And that's where it's starting to get a gray area, at least for me. Because the only proof in the pudding I have is simply this: you're not getting better at things that you already weren't good at. Some of the things that you already weren't good at, you actually look worse now. What could that be? How could that be? I'm going to say another thing, very specifically to the Giants. The defense they didn't have a bunch of issues. This was not a team. It was so much focus on Daniel Jones, the offensive line, that everybody forgot that the Giants had a good defense. Defense was still intact, as everybody saw. And this was one of the things that we talked about last week on the show. Wait a second. It's a couple of different things. When you're dealing with the team with their backs are against the wall, and if you lose this next game, people can get fired. They're going to bring the heat. They're going to bring the heat on you. It's going to get hot real quick. This is a team that doesn't want to lose, especially not in the division, and they had their backs against the wall. For some reason, it was all this focus on Daniel Jones as if Tyrod Taylor was some bum. We're not dealing in a league now where your second string means sorry, or second string means you should have stayed at the high school varsity team. It wasn't that. We're dealing in a league where your backups, everybody's ready to roll. And especially when your backups get in, hey, they don't want to lose that opportunity. They don't want to lose that time, that check. They're going to come and bring their best. So last week on Thursday, I said, well, why is everybody acting like Tyrod Taylor isn't good? I'm going back to offense now. We already done talked about the defense because there was so much focus on the Giants offense and who was going to be out that people forgot. They got a good daggone defense over there. And that defensive line was going to give the Commanders' offensive line fits. But sometimes this is what we all do. We look at records. We don't look at players. We don't look at game plan. We don't see. They said it right. They threw a lot of things at us. Okay, but they really didn't do anything that they haven't always done. So you would think, again, I'm going to go back to what happened with the Bears. You played them last year. That same quarterback gave you fits last year. Somehow you just wasn't ready for them. Is this a case where not only are certain things that were challenges not being addressed in a way that resonates with your player experiencing that particular challenge? Because see, here's the reality. What works with one person, that same approach may not work with the other. And it may not work with somebody. It might work with 3 people, may not work with the other 4. May work with 10, maybe not with the other 12. You have to figure out what's going to work. But the proof starts being there once you start seeing things that no longer add up. And when you start to see, you're dealing with, and I want to address this comment here. I see from the First String Podcast, it's time for new coaches, Seawall. And I see this one, Ron is out of touch. Hey, listen, there is a difference in how this generation connects. And it's not necessarily well, we just got to do this. This is going to be the old school way of things. And you just need to do this way because I said so. And we've heard that. Do your job. You do the job the way that we tell you and you'll be successful. Well, perhaps they're doing it the way you told them and they're unsuccessful. So then what then has to change in how they perform? Because the reality, this team is far better. I'm going to just say they're far better than what is shown on Sundays. Now, at the same token, and I'm going to tell you all, I want you all, while I'm telling this story and while I'm sharing this, you all guess in the chat who I had to have my therapy session with after the game. Who I had to say, wait a minute, I got to go and talk to somebody. Somebody's going to talk to me because I have something that I need to say and get off of my chest. I don't have to do a show until tomorrow, but I need to talk to somebody. There's something about game day that the same rigor isn't there. And again, I'm going to go back to regression. Things that they already weren't doing well, they're doing worse. And things that were actually working don't seem to be working anymore. I'm not necessarily saying that the Giants were going to be an easy game. I said that on several shows. I said it before the pregame as well. I said If ever you believed in a trap game, because I try not to believe in those because everyone is a professional. But if ever you believed in a trap game, this is a trap game. I said, I told y'all this against the Bears. I said it. And I got some backlash, Commanders fans, from people talking about, oh, you being negative. The Commanders got this in the bag. Not based on the history that I've seen. Trap game, if you believe in those things. If you don't believe in them, look out, is what I would say. Watch your back. Because when a team is against the wall, they coming at you from all cylinders. They still professionals at the end of the day. So is this a situation where you say, we know what they're going to run. We know what they're going to do, but you're just going to rely on your starters being better than their backups. So this is not one of those situations where you can say, I just believe that my players are going to be better because of the caliber of players or who they even are on paper. You still have to prepare. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You still have to prepare and teach it as we got to go in here and win this football game. It's got to be the same level of rigor. But if you're doing something over and over again and getting the same result, I think it still equals to insanity. And I wasn't concerned. You all haven't guessed yet who I had my therapy session with. I'm going to tell you who I had my therapy session with. And we're going to go to Sam Howell's presser in a moment. I had my therapy session with the one and only Brian Mitchell and Santana Mall. Okay, I went to the press conference. I was at Ron's press conference. I went in the locker room. There were some unhappy people in the locker room, so I left out of the locker room. And I said, I'm going back over to the broadcast where they are at the broadcast, and let's talk. I need to talk. And great conversation because they are tremendous, as you all know. Love, like button, of course, would be Mitch and Santana. But the reality was simply this. The Giants, you know that they do this when you play them. It doesn't matter who is on the team. You know the caliber. You know what they do. You know what they're capable of. They just have the Commanders number, and they always kind of have since the early 2000s. It's just the way that it's been. So you have an opportunity not just to beat the Giants, but to establish who you are. And it just, that message doesn't resonate. It's like the little things. And it's not characteristic of what I'm used to seeing with this team. I didn't see the level of corrective action. I'm going to go back to the defense. Yes, the defense, they stopped the bleeding, right? They stopped the bleeding. Hey, 14 points, that's all y'all going to get. That's it. If we go back to offense, and you all know I had my things with the defense. You all know I had my things with the defense and still did, even though they held them to 14 points and still did. There were still moments in time where I was confused, couldn't figure out why the starters were on the sideline. Why are the starters on the sideline? Are they hurt? Because if they're not hurt, then what are they doing on the sideline? Just because they got their backups in don't mean you need to have yours in. Okay? That's just me, though. That's just Seawall. But offensively, we've seen the Commanders score 30 a time or two. Seen them score 20 a time or two. They just couldn't get anything going offensively. And it was like, just tough it out. Just tough it out. Just tough it out. Just tough it out, which is the message we've been hearing. And, you know, I love the messenger. I love the messages. But at what point are you going to say just toughen it out and just working it through is not working today? I got to save my guy from himself. I got to save my people from themselves. We got to switch this up. You out there getting rocked. This is not going to work. I want to run the ball, but there's no holes. They're swallowing y'all up. We got to figure something else out. And that is when I'm like, okay, Because at that point, whatever you're doing offensively, it doesn't matter who's out there because the sack. I talked to my colleague, shout out to David Harrison, about how what the fastest sack was. Okay, the fastest sack that they did was 4 seconds. It's not that fast. It ain't that slow, but it's not that fast, which means there's some time. There is some time. But why wasn't anything corrected? Why is this something that, again, I'm going to go back to why is it stuff that we saw week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Why are we still watching this week 7? It's because something is not resonating and something isn't necessarily being done in order to correct that particular problem. So let's go to some of the comments in the chat, and then we're going to go to Sam Howell's press conference. And I've seen this. I saw this other comment too. I believe it was from Marius and Eric Parrish. Ron is the trap. He's out of date with what's going on. That goes back to the comment I was sharing with you all around this generation and what resonates and what works. In the my way or the highway, if you do what I tell you, you'll be successful. Now, let's be clear. There are some execution challenges. There are some execution challenges. I'm not going to act like it's said. Sometimes there's some things happening. You know, there's some catches I believe that should be made. There's some tackles that I believe that should be made. There's some blocks that I believe that have been missed that have to be addressed. But on the other flip side of that coin, is the message could be fine. Messenger could be fine. It's how the message is moving across. And when you're still having the same issue over time like this, and it's even getting worse, that's how you know something isn't clicking. I see this comment from D'Angelo Pope. Oh, they need to switch it up. Hey, listen. The offensive line was something that has been a conversation, and we all knew that because they were new and dealing in this and working together that this was going to happen. Now, the conversation around Andrew Wiley, very nice man, but the conversation around Andrew Wiley, I spoke about him in a long form on this show after the preseason game after the Cleveland Browns, because he got beat, and that's how that safety happened. And I continuously said, defensive linemen are going to see that film. That one alone, they're going to use that move every time, and they're going to beat them every single solitary time because it worked. And we've literally seen that happen week after week. Now, it doesn't always result in a safety because that's not where you're on the field, but it's literally the exact same moves. So yes, Nick Gates, love him. He's a goon, let me tell you. But he had a time on yesterday. He really had a hard way to go in that game against the Giants. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty at all. I see here the comment about Sam having the same issue at UNC. We're getting ready to jump to Sam Howell's press conference, after game press conference. You all stick with me. If you're just tuning in, you're watching from the Culture from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update, and I'm your host, Seawall. Thank you so much for hanging out for the live discussion. Bowie Television, every single day this show comes on. Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77 from 1:30 to 2:30, and on the weekends during the noon hour. And oh, by the way, while you're here, make sure you subscribe to Bowie TV on YouTube. It's Bowie TV at BCMC TV Maryland or BCMC Maryland TV. Either one, you will find it. I promise you. Now, as we're going through Sam Howell's press conference, write in the chat, what do you think about his comments? Check it out.
Hey, Sam, what do you think was going on there in the first half with the kind of look? Was it the looks they're giving you? What do you think was going on?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that were going on. You know, they gave us some looks, but they weren't any looks that we don't know the answers to. It was just more of a matter of just executing. You know, we didn't do a good job executing the first half, and got to some adjustments there towards the end of the first half and into the second half, and we're able to do some good things. But just got to come out of the gate better and start faster and just execute better in the first half. You know, that we felt like it was another game we felt like we should have won, and we felt like we were the better team, but we didn't play that way today.
You feel like maybe you're giving a better shot in the second half with some more of those fades, the go balls and down the sides, attacking the coverage a little bit more? Did that give you a better shot to get something done?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the second half we got to some more kind of max protection type stuff and kind of just, kind of put it in the hands of our receivers. And those guys did a good job of, getting down the field vertically and beating those guys and winning their one-on-one matchups. I was just trying to do my best to get the ball in their hands. So they definitely all stepped up and made some big plays. That last play, I got to make it easier on Jahan. Probably a lot of people are going to say he should have caught it, but I got to give him a better ball, and he was wide open. I got to give him a better throw.
Every offense is going to play better without pressure, but it seems like pressure seems to be affecting you guys a little bit more. Why is that, and how can you guys address that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think everyone kind of has a hand in it. I think a lot of the sacks this year, I think I could have done a better job kind of get rid of the ball, and then there is at times where we just kind of get beat up front. So I think we can all do a better job of just focusing on what our job is and what our responsibility is on each and every play, and just taking it one play at a time. But at the end of the day, our plan is good. We have good plays, and we just got to execute.
How did you feel like the protection communications were today, sliding, things like that? How do you feel like those went?
Yeah, it was good. We made some adjustments throughout the game. So, usually kind of going into it, versus what looks, kind of what we're going to get to. We made some adjustments throughout the game and kind of slid different ways. But I thought the guys did a good job. There wasn't many miscommunications or anything like that.
How different was their pressure from what you were expecting coming in?
Yeah, not much different. I think for the most part, we had them picked up. It was just a matter we just got to do a better job winning our one-on-one battles. I got to do a better job getting the ball out of my hands. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. They have good guys up front, and the way their front is structured, they demanded a lot of one-on-one, reps with our guys, and it makes it tough, especially in passing situations when those guys know they can just tee off. But at the end of the day, we just got to do a better job kind of avoiding those situations, and then when we are in those situations, we just got to execute.
Terry had a couple really tough catches, including the one where, you get the extra 15 yards for unnecessary roughness. How nice has that been to have that available to you in those crunch times?
Yeah, I mean, having Terry's awesome. I got to do a better job just relying on him when times are tough and just giving him an opportunity. They were coming down and pressing a lot. We probably saw the most press today that we've seen all year. And Terry does a great job beating press coverage and obviously getting down the field vertically. So every time I kind of saw that opportunity, I was just trying to give him a chance, and he did a great job.
Were you surprised you guys didn't go with the max protect and the rollouts a little earlier after all the early pressures?
No, I mean, I think the hard thing is, you work all week long on a game plan, and you work on the opening script, and you work on all these plays that you think are good against their defense. And at the end of the day, the play calls were fine, and what we were doing was fine. We just weren't executing. So it's kind of hard to just say, after the first few drives, to just say, just screw it, we're throwing our whole game plan away, we're going to do something else. I thought our plan was fine. We just got to do a better job executing.
Sam, I know that sometimes it's a combination of different things, but it's always loud here. There's always going to be trouble hearing the snap count, even if you go silent, all of those things. So how frustrating is it that you think you've got things that can beat blitzes, and yet for a whole half they don't work?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. We felt like we had a good plan and had answers for everything that they might do, and we just weren't executing. So it's frustrating, but the good thing is our defense played well and kept us in the game, and made some big plays, huge stops. The turnover. And we just got to do a better job offensively. If our defense gives up 14 points, and I think one of those touchdowns on a short field after my interception, we should win the football game. And hats off to our defense. They kept us in the game. We just got to do a better job offensively.
Hey, Sam, could you talk about how tough it was in that first half, and what was your mindset in that first half?
Yeah, we're just trying to get something going. Obviously, we didn't start the game we wanted to. But we still felt like we could move the ball. We just had to put a drive together. And obviously, we struggled to do that in the first half. And it's hard to win football games in this league when you play a half that bad. Unfortunately, we kept it a 2-score game pretty much the whole game. Then it got down to a 1-score game. Defense got a big turnover. But our defense played well enough for us to win the day, and offensively we didn't do our job.
Can you just walk us through what happened on the interception? What did you see on that play?
Yeah, I thought it was the right read and the right play, kind of based off what look we kind of wanted. I just got to throw the ball out there. I don't know if the ball got tipped or something. I just felt like I didn't get it as far. The ball didn't go as far as I was trying to throw it. So it was just a bad play on me. But I thought decision-making wise, it was fine. I just got to throw the ball a little further away from that guy. Appreciate it, guys.
So what Sam Howell was sharing was exactly what I was sharing earlier in the show, which was what are the execution challenges? And when those challenges are happening, how then are the coaches, what is the messaging from the coaches on basically get it together? What is going on? What's happening? Because that's where I'm getting back into regression. He's saying, I saw a lot of comments in the chat saying he's not saying anything. Well, basically what he's telling y'all, they didn't play well. Their calls, the plays are there, the calls are there. They're not doing it. They're not executing. That's where I'm concerned. Things that I see in practice, things that I saw in practice that they do well, very well. They don't do it on game day. And I don't know. And that is something that is a concern because you practice how you play. What you see on Sunday should be what you did in practice, and that is not what's happening here. So that is something that is a grave concern. Why is what has actually happened all week long not happening on game day? I mean, it's a real thing. They didn't do it. And it's things that we watched them do. Some of these things we've watched them do all summer long. Been watching them do it since May. That's why I'm like, there's an elephant in the room here. And we gonna figure this clue out together. Okay, Bowie TV watchers. We're gonna figure this out together because I'm telling you, it's something. I don't know. I don't think it's nerves. I don't think it's jitters. I have no idea. It could be that it could also be of the pace, right? Maybe there, because I'm gonna go back to an example. Let's go back to an example of a positive moment in recent Commanders history. Are you with me? Roll with me. The Eagles game. Down the regulation, 2-minute warning, 2-minute drills. Jahan catches the ball. Now, it was a much better thrown ball. Yeah, because even what he said, even what Sam Howell said in his press conference, we had that conversation in the press box. That last play was the issue, the ball that Sam threw to Jahan, or should have Jahan caught that football? And my response was he should have caught it. There was a catch that went to Logan. 2 hands. You should have caught it. 2 hands. We watch you catch that in practice, Logan. We watch you catch that in practice, Jahan. Maybe the ball wasn't all that great, but we've watched you do that. So what was it in game mode that you couldn't do it? Is it because of the level of defensive pressure that's on you? What is it? We've watched Logan catch the ball and take off down the field. In practice, now you in the game, you catch the ball and you too busy trying to stiff arm somebody. Get down the field like you do in practice. And so it just could be a matter of that game day action different. Those game day hits are real. And because for a part of me saw Jahan, I felt like he flinched. And I shared this with Lake Lewis. I said, I feel like they flinched. And I'm like, it's not, and I don't know, but they look better in practice than they do on game day. That's what I can say. Things that they are doing, things that they're working on things. So I don't know if the trash talking, the environment, the pace, I'm not sure. But even when you're rattled or even when you are losing focus or whatever the case may be, what is being said to you to get you back in focus? What is happening to say, this is what I see in you, and this is what I need you to do to collect your thoughts and get your stuff together so that we can win this football game? Because you are better than the other person on the other side of the scrimmage line. You can beat your person on the other end of that scrimmage. Yes, you can. So how are those things resonating? Because I'm like, they catch these footballs. They make these holes. Now, I mean, hey, now the defensive line and the offensive line, now that's a whole nother thing. Because, hey, this offensive line gets beat quite a bit. But we've seen them practice things and we've seen how it can happen in fruition. And it doesn't, and I want to say this. I see this comment from Lamar. It might be the run calls themselves, but it seems like the others run 1 yard into a cloud of dust. Maybe we need more power runs. On Sunday, that wasn't going to work. Not from what we could see. It's just one of the offensive line isn't good. They're not good, and that's just the fact. And unless there has to be more preparation for their one-on-one matchup so that they understand what tactics are being used by those defensive linemen and the defenses overall so that they can be more effectively prepared, because the reality is they're going to lose their one-on-one matchups most of the time. So they have to understand their opponent. It's like when you go into any competition, if you're doing it, you got to understand your person. Who's your person? Who's your people? What are they good at? Where are they in the areas of improvement? What's going to get them? And that level of preparation isn't being done because it's too much relying on that in that regard than beating their one-on-one matchups. And they're just not going to do that most of the time. So it's going to have to be a bit more scheming in who on my team is the best person to go up against that person. If that means you shake things up on your starting lineups a bit, it is what it is. But you can't just keep doing it just to say that you did it unless you know and understand that the best person for the job you need to put in there based on the other person on the scrimmage line. Who's the best person for the job? Who's the best person who can make that work? Because if you won't line up against the same people all the time, especially on this past Sunday, I'm like, well, my God, they've already showed you that, and they were ready for the run game. They're ready for that. So then when you try to throw the football, everybody's not catching it, which they normally do. So it's like, what? And then in other cases, Sammy is holding the football for too long. So what adjustments need to be made? And Sam said it. He said it. We're not going to just throw our whole game plan out the window because it's not working. Well, maybe you need to consider that. Maybe you need to consider shaking some things up or be prepared for the shakeup. If you know the personnel on the other side of the scrimmage line. That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's an extra level of preparedness that's not transpiring so that they know exactly who they're playing. You all have heard me come on this show many times and be like, well, they didn't know. And so yesterday I said, oh, they forgot. It was so much emphasis on the offense that they forgot the Giants had a good defense. How you forget that? Because why? Everybody's looking at the records. Then they're not tying in the emotional aspect of this. Hey, don't nobody want to lose their job? Nobody. No one. So they're going to come in at home, and it's a division rival, and they're going to try their best to beat you. And they only had to score 14 points to do it. And that is disturbing. That's disturbing. Because this offense, Commanders, they can get you at least 20. Seriously. I really, and hey, when Andrew Wiley lost it and got that personal foul, I said, ooh, they are getting tossed out there. They're getting beat out there. And they absolutely know it. And now the frustration is setting in. Because Andrew Wiley is very cool, calm, and collected. You know, he's going to play football, but he doesn't get mad like that. He doesn't just say, screw it, and say, He was mad. He was upset. They were getting beat. I don't know what the TV. I watched some of the TV version, but they were getting the crap beat out of them for real on that offensive line. They were, and so they knew it too. Once Andrew Wiley lost it, I said, "Well, there goes the neighborhood," because Sam Cosmi normally does lose it a little bit. Nick Gates, Andrew Wiley does not. I said he's getting the brakes beat off of him, and he's upset. And so, what do you do then, other than say, "Well, hey," but you do have to change the plays up. One thing I'll say, going back to Chris Rodriguez, one thing Chris seems to do is it's like Chris waits out the play. He gets the football and he waits to scan the environment. After everybody has tossed each other around, then he typically takes off a little bit. So that's one thing. He doesn't just go. He waits a little, then he goes, which could be helpful, which could be extremely helpful. But he's a power runner, and you love to see more of him. But hey, let's all be for real. I want to go back to something. Jahan Dotson isn't having a good season. We're in week 7. Week 7. I projected that Jahan would have an amazing year. Jahan Dotson is not having a good season. This is where you start to say, okay, is the pace too much? Is the speed too much? Is the different coaching technique from what he's experienced previously with the previous offensive coordinator, what is resonating, what is not? It's a tough year for him. It's a tough year. And it goes back to what conversations are being had, what's helping him to get through this tough period. After the game yesterday, I'm not certain what the TV version showed, the CBS version. I'm not sure what everybody saw. He was upset after the game. He stayed on the sideline for a while. And I get what Sam Howell said about that football being thrown. It was other people too that said Sam threw a bad football. He threw a bad football. You put Jahan in a danger zone. And I'm like, Jahan should have caught that. And what happens if you're paying attention, he's been giving Jahan, there was sometimes in preseason where it was like repeat and go, where you saw there was going to be heavy amounts of throws and targets to Jahan Dotson. And the reality is, when he has his moments, it's not coming to fruition. That goes back to execute. It's not coming to fruition. And that is a player that I'm like, okay, what's going on? I see this question here. Is any of the top picks achieving their potential? Jahan Dotson had an amazing year last year. Different offensive coordinator, game day. Again, catches. He normally catches these. We saw him catch them last year. We see him catch them in practice. It's not coming to fruition on game day. What's transpiring here? Don't know. We know that Emmanuel Forbes, a lot was placed on Emmanuel Forbes. I told you all that back during the summer. I said, well, I don't know if I'm telling some competitive advantage information here, but they got Emmanuel Forbes tracking Terry in practice. He's tracking Terry, he's tracking Logan Thomas, he's tracking Jahan, which means they putting him on wide receiver 1. And I don't know how that's going to go down by the time we get to Philadelphia. Literally what I said back during the summer. By the time we get to Philadelphia, that experiment might start looking a little shaky because these are very physical wide receivers. So that's what happened. He was back in the game yesterday. It was all right. It was fine. Nothing glaring, but nothing bright starshine worthy. But it goes back to now with that on the defensive side, and this is in response to the question. That's when I look at Jack Del Rio and easily say, are you using your personnel to their strengths? I can tell you right now, the answer is no. No. So, and are you scheming up something that is better based on your person. Again, it goes back to how well do you know. In leadership classes, we call it, I'm gonna go back to this, and then we do have to cut out because we could talk about this forever. Seriously, can you tell? And also because I'm not having a show on Thursday, so I'm giving you all some more time. So thank you for sticking it out with me. We do something called stakeholder profiles. In stakeholder profiling, in this case, you would have a profile of every single person on the team. You know the unit, you know the player, you know what they're good at. Hey, if you would like to even know what they like to eat for dinner, you can know that too. But it's really about the game day situation. Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't use some of this stuff for trash talking purposes as well. Like, hey, if you know something about somebody, you can make a joke or you can say something, call them, say whatever, get into all of that. To just really get into somebody's skin, to throw them off. You can try that too. I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying that you can. Right? Use it for that purpose. But it really is to understand the personnel. And what I am seeing week after week is that they are underestimating the personnel on the other side of the team. They're looking at records and they are adjusting based on their game planning based on those records. Do not game plan based on the records. You need to game plan based on what they're scheming, who their individuals are, who these folks are, who they've played. Because the caliber of team counts too. The caliber of team counts as well. So we're going to go back to the Giants defensive line and the Commanders offensive line. The Giants have played better teams than the Washington Commanders. So they have faced better offensive lines. So maybe them being so good wasn't really noted or talked about, again, because it was overshadowed by all the conversation around the offense injuries. But please, those other offensive lines are very good that they went up against, right? Against the Commanders, it was going to be a very tough day for the Commanders. But I'm not seeing the game planning and preparation done in a way where they really understand and respect the level of competition on the other side of the field. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm sensing. When I'm seeing and sensing the players not executing things on game day that I've watched them execute and practice, what I'm not seeing and what I'm not sensing is what then is the corrective action from a leadership perspective to say, we are better than this. We know how to do this. Run the play again. Get it right this time. Do it again. Do it again. Get it right this time. Because when it's a matter of you just didn't catch the football, then that's the issue. If it's an issue of you just missed that tackle, on the offensive side, you missed that block, but at least it all has to happen hand in hand. So there's enough blame to go around. But we're going to go back to what they had those signs on the Metro that say, when you see something, say something. So when you see they're not doing something that you know they can do, you know that they're better at, help them get their act together. Because you know they're better than that. They know they're better than that. If you all must know, no, there wasn't a happy person in that locker room. I did talk to Terry after the locker room, and we had a pleasant conversation, but nobody was happy. There was nothing to be happy about. Jonathan Allen's frustration, it was real. It tired. But what can you do? You could also say, hey, listen, I'm letting the dogs out. Go and watch this film, and let's watch this film together. And Brian Mitchell shared this with me when he and I were talking. Again, I'm in my little therapy session with he and Santana. You watch film, you can watch the film, then you as an individual player, you need to watch you. This goes back to preparation. How long are you spending in the film room? Watching your teammates, watching yourself, and how long are you spending in that film room watching your opponent? I'm simply seeing people who aren't prepared for the other person. Did you know who the people were that play over there? Not the ones you went to school with. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people you have to beat in order for the play to be executed. And who then ensures that you do know them? To me, that's where the leadership comes into place. That's where it happens. That's where it comes into place. Is Saquon Barkley still going to do Saquon Barkley things? Darren Waller still going to do Darren Waller things. On the defensive side, Dexter Lawrence still going to do, Dexter Lawrence things. A lot of people act like they didn't know Deontay Banks. You all know I know Deontay Banks. He went to Maryland. They going to still do things. Do you know who they are? Are you paying attention? You should be. I don't know where this season goes. I don't. I have no idea where this season is going to go. I wish I could tell you. I don't know. That's all I said. I said I don't know 137 times yesterday. And then at one point in time, my colleague Donna Hopkins and Lake Lewis, they were like, look at Candy. She's very upset. I said, yes. When I get quiet and I just fold my hands or either fold my arms and sit back in my chair, I'm upset. And I'm upset because this is not what they practiced. And I'm really trying to figure out what is happening from practice day to game day. Because they don't practice. Anytime you hear me say, well, they look better in practice than they did on game day, that's an issue. Because on game day, you should up the ante for sure. If you look that good in practice, which they did. They do. All summer long. For real. And I'm seriously, if I told you it's not going to be good, I'll tell you it's not going to be good. But what's the conversation? Because we'll get them next week. We'll get them next time. That's not the conversation that needs to be had. We've seen glimpses of what this team could be like. We've seen what they can be like offensively in the Philadelphia Eagles game. We've seen that. They didn't come up with the W, but they had the Eagles on the ropes. We just all say that. Now, we've seen who they could be defensively in certain spurts. Overall, I'm going to continue to say this until I see it differently. The only game where I saw the Commanders look like how they do in practice is the second half of the Denver Broncos game. Remember when they came out and they played, I said, I recognize these people. And I didn't mind telling some people in the locker room after the game, and I didn't know who y'all were on Sundays. I almost stopped speaking to y'all because I thought you were different people. This game, I recognized everybody. Very good. But the rest of these games, now the Eagles game, yeah. Bills, nope. Bears, nope. Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to tell you, no. I didn't recognize that. They ended up winning because the Falcons offense wasn't executing. That's how that went down. But I still was like, they better than this. I'm glad they got the W, but no. We'll have to see what happens. You got to want it. And I'm going to put this up here is the last comment. They're just not hungry enough in their hearts. You really got to want it. You really got to want it. And you got to be prepared. They got to want it and they got to be able to execute it. They got to be able to say, somebody need to be able to say, Coach, give me the football. I know I dropped it. I know I dropped it. Give me another chance. Let's hit it. Let's go. You right. I got you. So we'll have to see. I think it's a communication challenge going on though. I can't prove it, but I'll be doing my salute thing so that I can very soon. You all listen. Thank you so much for hanging out. We did this for an hour and some change, talking about the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants. Up next for the Commanders is the Philadelphia Eagles at FedEx Field. Another sold-out crowd. Here's to hoping that there's more Commanders fans than Eagles fans, but you never know, especially after that loss to the Giants. A reminder that I am not doing a live this Thursday. You all wish me safe travels as you always do. I'm going to go enjoy my homecoming at Hampton University. So I'm off. But you all, thank you so much for hanging out. Again, from the Coaching from the Couch series, you have been tuned in to the live discussion on the Washington Commanders update. I am your host, Seawall. You can find this each and every single day, 1:30 to 2:30 on Bowie Television, Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77, and on the weekends, it's during the noon hour. I appreciate you all hanging out with me for the whole entire hour and some change. I will be talking to you all again next week.